Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. This is an episode of George Versus, and I'm taking on the big one this time. Vince McMahon. That's right, George versus Vince McMahon. Now, a lot of the frustrations coming into this video are coming from the podcast he did with Stone Cold Steve Austin about 2 weeks ago now. I thought it was open, I thought it was insightful, I thought it was a must-watch for any WWE fan. I've watched it 2 separate times. There were some good things that came out of it. A lot of negative, too, though. And some of it really stuck in me and really got in my head and made me start thinking. And that's what I'm going to get into here. Why I think Vince McMahon is out of touch. Why quote-unquote, against Vince McMahon. Now, I'll preface this, I'll say it. I watch WWE. I probably watch more WWE programming than 95% of the world. I am a fan. Am I part of the problem? Probably, because I buy the t-shirts, I pay for the network. You know, I'm part of the machine at this point. But there are issues that I have. I'm a wrestling fan first and foremost. I love Ring of Honor. I love Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. I love TNA. I love the new Lucha Underground, which is part of AAA. I like watching New Japan Pro Wrestling. I have an insatiable lust for professional wrestling. And that's going to get to my first point. Vince McMahon's insistence that it's not professional wrestling, it is sports entertainment. And one of the weirdest things that I heard, and this was part of the podcast he mentioned this, and I've heard him say similar before, that wrestling is what his father did. Sports entertainment is what he did. And this is part of the issue, Vince. Yeah, do we need storylines? Does the storylines make it better? Of course it does. You know, the Attitude Era is not as big without Austin versus McMahon in that struggle. But we don't need overly booked, stupid storylines. Case in point, Brie versus Nikki Bella, which gets dropped, and all of a sudden Brie and Nikki are fine again. All we need to have, and a perfect example, is in your own product in NXT. NXT TakeOver Our Evolution just aired a few days ago. And feuds had reason. Sami Zayn was feuding with Adrian Neville over the NXT title. Sami Zayn was trying to reach the quote-unquote brass ring, which we'll get into in a minute, that he couldn't get over the hump of winning the big game. So it built on that. Other things were that you had the Ascension bullying Finn Balor and Hideo Itami. So the payoff is Itami and Balor get a tag match with the Ascension. Simple. Charlotte and Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks gets jealous of Charlotte because Charlotte wins the championship. Former best friends become rivals. Simple. We don't need to have soap opera writing. We need simple, cohesive storylines, not sports entertainment. And if you go back, everybody had storylines. The AWA had storylines, World Class Championship Wrestling had storylines, NWA and all its different territories had their own storylines, ECW had storylines, Ring of Honor has storylines, and always had, even though people think it doesn't. Evolve, Dragon Gate, every company has storylines. It's part of what it is. The problem is you're trying to turn pro wrestling into a variety show, which it's not. Do some of the elements work? Are they needed at times? Yes, but every week it doesn't have to be a variety show. I don't need the 20-minute setup in the beginning of every show to tell me what's going to go on. All I need to know is Cena hates Orton because Orton cheated to win last time. Bray Wyatt wants to fight Dean Ambrose because Dean Ambrose done him wrong, or Bray Wyatt's just crazy. Dolph Ziggler wants to stop Bray Wyatt because Bray Wyatt is evil. And he's good, and he wants to stick up for what's right and what's good in the world. You know, just my opinion. And it brings me to another part of that, which is the insistence on pushing down our throat D-list celebrities, guys that are either marginally famous or their fame had come several years before. Guy like Get Larry the Cable Guy comes into mind. Larry the Cable Guy's prime was 10 years ago, and I know he's part of a WWE product, I get that. But it doesn't change the ratings. Nobody's tuning into Raw to watch Larry the Cable Guy. As much as I enjoyed the Seth Green, who seems to be part of it and seems to enjoy being there, he doesn't move the radar. Grumpy Cat doesn't move your ratings sting. Now, some of them have been fun. The Muppets episode I thought was fun and entertaining. Some of them have got that outside attention. Yeah, the Hugh Jackman thing comes to mind. Others, Kevin Federline, who cares? Nobody cares about Kevin Federline. Florida Georgia Line, as big as they are, they're not bringing new viewers to your show. They're not. It's just not happening. If you're not getting the A-list type guys like at the time Mr. T, guys like at the time Mike Tyson, they're the ones that brought that A-list credibility to you. You're not getting that anymore. You're not bringing in the biggest stars. I don't see a Kanye West on Monday Night Raw. I don't know, who else is out there? I don't see Andrew Lincoln from Walking Dead on Monday Night Raw as a host. I don't see the cast of Sons of Anarchy coming on. I don't see the people that could bring you that. None of the big movie stars are on there. You don't have a Ben Affleck hosting Raw. So, as much as they want to get the celebrity rub, they're not getting it because the celebrities they're bringing in don't move ratings. They're either past their prime or so far down the scale that nobody cares. And that's going to bring us to our next thing. This is the thing that probably stuck in my head the most out of the Vince McMahon podcast was the brass ring statement and the millennials not grabbing for it. How do you grab for something that someone keeps pulling away? Daniel Bryan tried grabbing for that ring, and they kept pulling it away from him as far as they could until it was so overwhelming that fans were revolting against the show that they had to finally give it to him. Case in point, Antonio Cesaro. He makes, on the podcast, he points it out. Steve Austin drills him about it. You know, Cesaro doesn't have the it factor. Bullshit. Go back to WrestleMania and you tell me someone that's getting a bigger pop than Cesaro other than Daniel Bryan. You tell me someone that's getting over with the fans more than Antonio Cesaro was with the big swing, which they made him stop doing. Same thing with guys like Dolph Ziggler, Jack Swagger, guys that stick into my head, Kofi Kingston, guys that have gone there and the fans have reacted and responded to, John Morrison. These might not be favorites of mine, but these are guys that are connecting with the crowd. And you're not allowing them to grab at, quote unquote, your brass rings because of whatever reason, whether it's because they're not the guy you wanted to take that spot, whether it be because they don't look the part, whether it be because you didn't make them a star, so they're not your star. Case in point, Zack Ryder. Zack Ryder is a guy who's floundering on your show, goes out, makes a YouTube show, becomes a star pretty much on his own without your fucking help, and then you do everything you do to crush it. You stop the YouTube show. You put him in ridiculous angles where he loses. You don't book him in his hometown in Long Island during the time he's the hottest. The crowd's chanting for him the whole time, and you don't book the guy. How do you expect somebody to grab the brass ring when you've got a perfect example there? A guy that went there and he said, I'm going to do what other people haven't done. And now you use all of his ideas to get your predetermined stars over. You have the guys you've already picked to be stars, not the guys that are making themselves stars or that are doing better than they should have. And that's the problem. They slot people into certain roles and don't let them advance. Tyson Kidd is one of the most fantastic in-ring talents they have. And his personality, what we've got to see now in NXT and a little bit on the main show, is when given the chance, he can develop a personality that resonates with the fans, along with his ring work. But is he given the chance? No, I don't think he ever has been given a proper opportunity. Do I know why? I really don't, to be honest with you. A person like Emma, who's got a unique, quirky personality, quirky gimmick, worked so well in NXT, you bring her up to the main roster and bury her. You put her, first off, you put her with a guy like Santino, which no knock on Santino. He's good at what he did. But Santino is bottom of the card. Perception equals reality. You debut somebody as part of a bottom of the card act, they're going to have to claw their way up the card. Now, could you have debuted her better? Could you have debuted her like Paige? Probably. But you didn't. Even with Paige, they debuted her, they made her, she had a hot, she was boiling hot, everybody was talking about her all over the internet. Then all of a sudden you go into this quasi-lesbian gimmick, which has no payoff. She loses the title, and we see what happens to every other diva. She becomes part of the 8-man tag matches, or Total Divas matches, I call them, because the matches are made only based off of Total Divas storylines. And while I'm on the topic of divas, that reminds me of one of my big points. The reluctancy to push non-white males. Simple and plain. Roberto Rodriguez, I just recently watched his shoot interview, and I know people that do shoots are usually bitter, but there's truth in it. The reluctancy to push anyone that's not a white male is a glaring omission. Now, you could say that Del Rio had a big push behind him. You could say The Rock had a big push behind him. You could say Booker T even had a push behind him, even though he probably didn't get the push he should have. For every Del Rio, for every Rey Mysterio, for every Eddie Guerrero, for every Booker T, there's 5 to 10 other guys that are equally talented, equally deserve a push, could equally get over, and they are not allowed to. Case in point, even Del Rio. When they turned him face, they never really went forward with it. I think Alberto Del Rio could have been a great face. I think the gimmick they gave him was never the perfect fit for him. He's not an aristocrat. He's a guy that's had to wrestle and fight his way there. This guy is a world-class level wrestler. He's an MMA fighter. He's a serious threat. He's not just the guy with a lot of money. Let him be that guy. Let him be just an ass kicker. Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston has so much talent and so much ability to get over with the fans. However, he's not pushed. Now, he's in a new day, which I hope they do good things with. I really do. I want to see it succeed because I think all three of the guys are immensely talented. I really do. The point is, why can't they individually succeed? Why can't Xavier Woods, who's an amazing in-ring talent, an intelligent wrestler who could talk well, why isn't he getting any semblance of a push until you put him in a, I don't want to say it's a stereotypical gimmick, but kind of a stereotypical black preacher gimmick, which is kind of what they're doing, I think. I don't really know because it's not been flushed out all the way. Guys like the, you know, it's so frustrating. And it's not just the men. When I say non-white males, it's also the fact that they're reluctant to give their divas or women's wrestlers a more prominent role. AJ Lee is over. Natalya Neidhart is over. Paige is over. They could sell. They can make people tune in. If they're given storylines that make sense. If they're given something that they can do. Putting them in these stupid things where they do diva dress up or 8-man tag that gets 2 minutes on the show. You give a match 2, 3, 4 minutes, you can't tell a story. Give them a goddamn segment. Let them develop themselves. Let them sink or swim. It doesn't have to be they're somebody's girlfriend. It doesn't have to be they have a lesbian crush. It could just be they're good wrestlers. That's it. That's all you need. I mean, to me, and I believe it's based on what sold back in the 1980s, which the world was very different 30 years ago. It really was. I was alive then, so I remember these things. It was hard-pressed to have minorities, so to say, selling on any format. Whether it be TV, whether it be wrestling, whatever. It was a hard sell for most of America. I'd like to think in 2014 going into 2015, we've evolved. And some of the biggest stars in the world, some of the biggest stars on television, some of the biggest stars in movies, you know, aren't white males anymore. To me, you're not reaching out and grabbing demographics that are there to be grabbed. Do you not think that black people watch wrestling? Do you not think that Hispanic people watch wrestling? Do you not think that women watch wrestling? And if you don't, think to yourself, why don't they? Maybe it's because they don't have proper representation on the show. It's easy for me to watch the show and go, okay, Luke Harper looks like me. Or as a kid watching the show, I could go, wow, Roddy Piper looks like me. You know, Hulk Hogan looks like me. Paul Orndorff looks like me. The other guy over here, Junkyard Dog, he don't look like me. He's very entertaining, though. Wonder why he never got a real good push. Wonder why a guy so over as the Junkyard Dog never made it to the top. Wonder why it was a constant struggle for Booker T to be at the top. Wonder why, as good as the push that Rey Mysterio's had, he's never really been used to his full potential. Wonder why it took so long to give Mark Henry a world championship. I mean, it's the elephant in the room. I'm calling it as I see it. As an outside observer, there's something there. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And sad to say, there's a lot of fire on this one. And it's going to bring me into my last and probably the most important point of why I'm against Vince McMahon. The blatant ignoring fans. Blatantly. A guy like Zack Ryder is a perfect example. Fans wanted to see him succeed. Daniel Bryan. Fans wanted to see him succeed. Now that worked. The fans were able to get enough of it and move enough of it that it worked for him. Fans wanted to see CM Punk as the main event in WrestleMania. I know it's a hot button thing to talk about CM Punk. That's not why I'm bringing him up here. As fans, we grew and we had got attached. We liked Kofi Kingston. We like CM Punk. We like Daniel Bryan. We enjoy Cesaro. We think they're great. Rusev's boring. Ryback, I think he's got talent, regardless of what's been said on the internet of him. I think there's something there. to stop and start and stop and start and stall with his push, not been a good idea. It's to the point now where I see a guy I really like that's on their roster or getting signed to their roster, and I worry that, is this going to be better or worse for him? I used to wish a guy like AJ Styles or Samoa Joe would come into WWE and show what they could do on that stage because of how good they are. Now, I feel it's almost better that guys like AJ Styles and Samoa Joe don't go to WWE because WWE won't use them properly. Kevin Owens, I'm holding my fingers crossed, who formerly was Kevin Steen. So far we have one match and they built a hell of an angle off of his debut. But are they going to do right by him long run? How long before Vince McMahon says, I don't like seeing a guy wrestling in basketball shorts and a t-shirt, yet his top star wears jean shorts? How long is it till we say, Vince McMahon says, oh, he doesn't look like a superstar, he looks like a fan? You know, how long everybody loves Sami Zayn, thinks he's going to be one of the next big talents. I agree, he's one of the most talented wrestlers in the whole goddamn world. How long before Vince McMahon goes, oh, he's too skinny, he's got red hair? You know, you ignore what your fans are saying. And there's a lot of fans you got. And another thing is, you're not willing to take the chances. This bit him in the ass once before. The John Cena Hulk Hogan similarities are astounding. The fans in WWE were turning on Hulk Hogan before he left. Case in point, plain and simple. Fans were not showing for the shows, fans were booing Hogan. Cena's faced this for quite some time. With both men, Vince McMahon was reluctant to push either. Now, Cena doesn't have a WCW to go to. As big as TNA may be, or Ring of Honor may be, they're not as big as WCW was. They're not equal footing. Cena might go to New Japan Pro Wrestling. Might. That's almost probably as close as you're going to get to in the wrestling world to WWE is New Japan, as far as global impact and all that good stuff. So we're going to see John Cena as a face because he's reluctant to give up that cash cow right now, which he could turn and eventually make an even bigger cash cow. He could sell the heel John Cena merchandise to all the fans that wanted him to be a heel. And then 2-3 years down the road, when it's time for John Cena to turn back face, boom, merchandise starts flying off the shelf. All the while you're building up other guys to make other new stars that are also selling tons of merchandise. I don't know, all in all, I think Vince McMahon's a little bit out of touch. Am I a fan of his? Do I think he's one of the best minds in the history of wrestling? Yes. But I think 2014, almost 2015, I think Vince McMahon has lost touch, and that's why George is versus Vince McMahon. Anyway, this has been another episode of George Versus. I'm George Coles, and thank you for watching.